Go ahead.
My name is Victoria, and I represent Our Climate.
And Victoria, can you give your last name?
Callas.
Spell it.
C-A-L-A-S.
All right, so I'm going to identify you by first and last name, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And Our Climate, what is Our Climate?
Our Climate looks to empower the youth and educate the public and politicians to get them to propose solutions to become more sustainable.
Okay. All right, so now I'm going to begin the interview. I'm recording, of course, video and audio, and I'm going to ask you things like, what is this lawsuit? What's the hearing on Tuesday? Who is doing it? Why? And then what's the action that's happening tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so tell our listeners who might not have heard of this lawsuit before just a little bit about what's happening with this lawsuit and why is it happening?
Okay, so basically it's Juliana versus the state versus the government. So on Saturday, tomorrow, we will be meeting up at the North Tampa Library at 3 p.m. And basically, I am a field representative for Our Climate, which is also partnered with Our Children's Trust, which Juliana versus the state, that's who they are partnered with as well. And so we are going to congregate along with 100 other different conferences that are going on at the same time across the world, basically supporting her movement to sue the government for neglect.
And they're suing the government. This is the first case ever where people are going to the courts to say we have a constitutional right to have a stable climate.
Yeah.
And there's a hearing on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a landmark. They're talking about it being one of the most, I wouldn't say groundbreaking, but it's pretty, it's a landmark climate change case. So her, along with 21 other young activists across the country, have been also suing and raising awareness about climate change and how we need to come up with different policies to reduce its effects.
Why are you involved in this? What is it? Why is this an important issue to you?
So I've lived here my whole life, and throughout the course of my time, specifically in Tampa, we have a backyard that has like a really big preserve, and throughout the years we've noticed the water declining, the water levels declining. We used to have like a diverse wildlife habitat, and now it's almost non-existent. It's very dry to the point where like a couple years ago we had a fire start on the 4th of July, which is actually interesting because one of the conferences that will be held on Saturday is going to take place in Malibu. It's a house that burned down in Malibu due to the Woosley fire that happened. So it's kind of like we're congregating to show the effects of climate change. Like, this isn't something we talk about that, oh, it might be happening. No, this is real. It's happening, and we're showing the ugly side of it too, not just like the butterflies.
And one of the remarkable, sorry to interrupt, one of the remarkable things about Juliana versus the United States is that it's almost all young people, teenagers and youth that are organizing this. Why is it important that young people are involved in this movement?
Well, it's almost like we don't really have a choice because we don't see any elected officials making that progression to solving the issue. Can we solve climate change? The answer is yes, So we have no choice because this is our future. The people who are already like in their 70s, 50s, like above, they've lived their life. They've had the chance to have a family and only worry about making money and like just the American dream per se, whereas we have to think about our lives. Like, will we be able to breathe within X amount of years? Will our grandchildren be able to have the same resources that we have? Because right now there's people fighting in Africa. There's wars over water already. So I think it's very important that we get a handle on it now before it's irreversible. We have about 12 years before it's just irreversible. Not saying like the planet will end, but we do as a society. It's going to take out the lower income and work its way up until obviously there's not enough people.
Who do you hope comes tomorrow? If you have events tomorrow, an
Mhm.
event tomorrow at the North Tampa Library, what kind of people should show up there?
For sure, people who have like some sort of say in policies, like lawmakers, we hope show up. People who have power, because although we're young, there's many of us, so we have power a little bit, but not as much as to enforce a law, you know?
And again, it's at the North Tampa Library. What time tomorrow?
3 p.m.
Those are my questions. Is there anything else that people should know about your issues?
Honestly, yes. I read this quote last night, and it said, "It is the greatest mistake to do nothing because you can only do a little bit. Do what you can." And it was by Sydney Smith. So it basically just talks about most people don't want to, like, you don't have to dramatically change your way of life, even like getting a reusable water bottle or limiting the amount of time like you just drive, like carpool reduces CO2 emission. So I just feel like just a little change in your routine goes a long way. And we don't need 8 billion people doing it 100% right. We need 8 billion people doing it okay, you know? So.
Great, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.